Hello and welcome to Sales Development Represent, a video series dedicated to best practices and actionable tips for the modern day SDR. Today, we're going to be talking about targeting and prioritizing leads as an SDR. Joining us is Lee Gladish from Airborne App. He's the former co-founder of Reply, and he's a proven startup sales growth leader. Lee, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Grayson. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Cool. So before diving into prioritization, I think it's important to take a step back and think about the bigger picture behind the SDR role, because sales development has always been a challenging function, and I feel like it's becoming more and more difficult as buyers evolve and as strategies become more sophisticated. So based on your experiences, Lee, what should today's SDRs be keeping in mind and doing to succeed in today's world?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel today in the SDR world, it's more challenging than ever, but it's also like a very rewarding role, especially in these times. So, SDRs that leverage, research, technology, data are the ones who really come up on top. It's super important to be relevant and communicate the product and services true value to your prospects today. Because attention spans and tolerance are like at very all-time lows right now. So it's like more important than ever to really relay those true values and benefits of your application, your service, and really like what's the time? Is it time? Is it efficiency? Is it savings that you're relaying those to your prospects? Because without really understanding that now more than ever, and that should always be the case, but it always isn't. But relaying those three things, time, savings, and efficiencies, is more relevant than ever. So I feel that those are really true benefits that SDRs need to be kind of relaying at this time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think a lot of it stems from the current discussion around reps are really there to help find the value and relay that value to their customers, whether it be in different sectors. People develop ICPs to help reps understand this person wants to focus more on time, this person wants to focus more on savings, and really help them understand, hey, this is the kind of messaging you should be relaying to this individual because we've done the work on marketing's end, or we have all of this anecdotal data that tells us that's the case. So reps who have this developed ICP and this outreach strategy, maybe they tend to do better than some reps who are kind of just throwing caution to the wind, reaching out and doing whatever they can. So do you find that organizations who sort of better align reps with their marketing teams and sales to develop these ICPs are in fact having more success, or is it kind of just based on the acumen of the rep itself and whether or not they have that behind them makes them better or worse off?
Yeah, aligning your ICPs have literally changed overnight. Researching the prospects, researching the industry, truly understanding what's happening in that industry, and understanding how your product really relates to that now. Because if you're offering a service that is just not, I don't want to say mandatory or completely required, but you really need to know those ICPs right now because not everyone's buying. So having maybe like a product like a Feedly to like as an AI assistant to help in this process to understand like who your customers are and where they are in that process may help a little bit, because it'll actually give you kind of information on like what's happening in that customer, that prospect's buying cycle or news. And then a lot of people are pausing and buying subscriptions right now. They're pausing, they may be canceling even. So that also means like budgets are also opening though, and they're freeing up more than ever, and companies are looking to save money. So when I look at a company, they may be moving to another provider, and having a looking at a time like this may be a great time to actually be evaluating as well. So experienced SDRs should really, be part of that conversation with the ICPs. And that really goes down to marketing, the leadership, and redefining the ideal customer profile, because it's literally changed overnight. We all know that. So when we look at redefining the ideal customer profile, redefining like your sequencing and your messaging, and then bringing that information to the front lines and those insights from the conversations that you're having with prospects, because, sales leaders are probably on the phone. Marketing managers probably aren't on the phone. The BDRs are right now. So like relaying that message over across the table with that research to help evolve the messaging is more important than ever. I think just like essential workers, frontline workers right now, SDRs in our space are the guys and gals who are like bringing that message to the forefront, like really essential, I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think a great point that you made and kind of what you brought up underhandedly is information. I think information kind of is the common thread that pulls together different departments and allows marketing and sales to really communicate and get a good grip on buying behaviors, on market changes in real time as they happen. Because as you say, like ICPs can change overnight. Buying behaviors can quickly change, and even strategies that you might think are great can quickly become obsolete. And information is at the core of a modern SDR's tool belt. So to go into that, what tools would you recommend to reps to kind of help them manage, access information, and then also prioritize leads?
Yes, we all know what tech stacks look like. Everybody has their preferred tech stack. Everybody, we know that, you're using a CRM. There's no doubt you cannot get by without using a CRM. And it still makes me laugh when I see something on LinkedIn or a Facebook group and people are like, what is Intercom or Drift the best CRM? Like people still don't know what a CRM is. Like we know in the tech world, we all know what CRMs are, but there's still people like out there and companies out there that are like thinking like I'll use Intercom or Drift for a CRM, and it's not. So like when we look at a stack, we want to look at a CRM, of course. Like there's Salesforce, the usual suspects, there's Copper, there's NetSuite CRM for large enterprises, whatever else there is. There's a whole bunch of them. There's thousands of them out there. And then we have like the data Discover orgs, there's like Uplead, the Lime Leads, the Zoom Infos. You have your sales engagement stack as well. So we all know like the usual suspects. There's like SalesLoft, there's Outreach, and phone, dial pad, just call. And then you have your research descriptions. So like, your Crunchbase, your Owler, your LinkedIn Navigator, your Feedly. But the best reps have the playbook from management. So, tech is one thing. Tech is going to help you not sell. It's not going to teach you to be a better seller. It's going to help you optimize, okay? But the reason why you have these sales engagement platforms and your phone dialer and your CRM is not just to send emails to automate workflow. It's not just to manage your day accordingly and like when and what and who to prospect. The main goal here is you have a phone system, not to make phone calls, but it's like to better listen to the calls that you're making, your management to better listen to the calls you're making so you become better. You don't have a sales engagement platform because you want to send more emails. It's to automate the workflow from your CRM to your sales engagement platform and to manage your day accordingly. It's that playbook. So it's like, do I send a LinkedIn, phone call, message, email, video? They all work, not just one. They all work together and they work better together. CRM, like I think we can agree we all don't like CRMs, but necessary evil. We want to take that data and we want to have it integrated with our sales engagement. So when we put a note in sales engagement, it goes in CRM, we can see visibility across the board. And then data is not just to find an email address or a phone number. Data is to so you don't double dip on your prospects. I've already prospected that market. I've already known that I've gone after this company. I already prospected into this lead. So it's not just about the outcome of what you get out of those systems. It's about what they really do for you as a business leader and your SDR to make everyone better and more efficient. That's really what it comes down to with these products.
Yeah, and I think you brought up some really good points in there when it comes to you're not implementing these tools because you've been told to do so because they ramp up activity or they quote unquote put fuel on the fire for your reps, but you're doing it because they all work in sync with one another and really give your reps the idea of how to prospect, knowing that all of these tools work within each other and utilizing them not individually but as a unit and as part of an organization really gives them visibility into what to do, how to do it, and sort of what to look for. And going a little bit back to Grayson's point, when it comes to data, integrating all of that together really sets a rep up well for prioritizing who they're reaching out to. I think you touched on it very briefly when it comes to like double dipping, or, you've got leads in your system, in your CRM, however clean it might be. And reps know that with the tools they have to start reaching out, sending emails, making phone calls, using social, whatever it might be. But the visibility of the system itself and teaching reps how to use it effectively sort of helps them understand priority. So in your mind, how should reps really prioritize the leads using the system that they have, and what workflow should they develop to make that successful and iterative?
Yeah, this is always a tricky one. And I've consulted at different companies, worked with a lot of companies, and I've talked to a lot of other companies as well. And it seems that, and I've done that because I'm trying to figure out the best playbook for myself. Every company you speak to, sales or marketing is going to be running that playbook. Sometimes both, sometimes one or the other. And sometimes it's going to be the CEO, which is the worst. Because, the CEO thinks they run both sales and marketing, and that's always a mess, especially early on in a company. But the key thing to understand with these accounts and leads is, for example, when you're prioritizing a prospect, have they been featured in the news? Is there an event they've been in the last 7 days? Are they sponsoring conferences in 5 months from now? So being disciplined and sticking to like a schedule of traits is what you want to develop. So I strongly recommend blocking time off in your calendar and dedicating your time for calling, dedicating your time for personal email, dedicating your time for like personalizing, a video. So based on sales or marketing, who's running this playbook, and I have this is, I think, a completely other call. You can get a lot of other people kind of like battling on this one. I don't know what is the right way, what's the wrong way, but I'll tell you right now, if sales is running the playbook a lot of time, it's like, make me 100 calls. And then if it's marketing's like, well, like these are like the highest nurtured prospects based on score. So let's go after these group of people. So like none are right or wrong, but like, I think you need to have a strategy, and, you gotta, it's all depending on who's running it within the org, sales or marketing.
Yeah, and I think it really goes back to like the purpose of prioritization. It's going through with the limited time you have as a rep and trying to find the most valuable opportunities, the most engaged opportunities, and really spend the best time on those. And then meanwhile, as an organization and as a rep, trying to automate and really find a good workflow for the mass of buyers in your system that won't be ready to buy immediately. And what that really takes is two things. There's the data and the prioritization, which we've kind of been talking about, but then there's the actual next step, which is, okay, you prioritize some leads, you have some tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Well, how are you going to adjust your outreach for those tiers, one that might be more or less valuable? So to kind of throw it back on you, Lee, how do you see SDRs like successfully adjusting their outreach on a day-to-day basis based on these kind of like tiers, or maybe other organizations call them buckets that they have built out?
Yeah, so prioritizing your sequences, again, based on, triggers. So the more data that you have for your SDR, the more successful they're going to be. So for example, like, is a prospect opening up those emails multiple times? Are they, going to a company newsletter? Have they showed up for a webinar? Are they commenting on LinkedIn posts? Are they, are you combining this data with like marketing data and then like a lead score, which is going to give you like a much higher audience to target? I always say the best outbound is the best inbound. So when you have a lot of inbound leads, or any good amount of inbound leads, those trial accounts, you're gonna kind of focus on, those leads. Like, so here's a perfect example. Like, why not focus on a prospect that signed up for a trial for 14 days, that visited your site, that used the software, invited somebody to use it in their company, has consumed content on your site, maybe seen your LinkedIn page or whatever it may be. Like, I think that's probably the perfect prospect to go after. But that's great. Like, marketing will tell you to do that. And then, sales leaders have no idea that's even happening. And they're like, well, we got like all these stale leads, like, go after them. Maybe not the best prioritization. So, the more data you have, the more data points you have, is going to be, the best for you. One mistake I see happen all the time, and it's happened to me too, is let's say we're using software as an example for today. When someone does sign up for your trial, we all know we get those emails. Every company sends us those emails. Okay. The big, small companies, we all get those emails there. Wherever they send them from, it doesn't really matter. The point though is, if I'm I sign up for a trial and I enter a data field and I use the product and I've done something, I've done an action, 9 times out of 10, I'm getting the same email no matter what action I take. The great companies out there really understand like triggers and points within that cycle of that 14, 30-day trial, whatever it may be. And I'm getting content delivered based on actions that I've taken. Having your SDR on top of that, super effective. Like you're talking quota crusher all the time. But a lot of companies just avoid it. And it's just a little bit of work to do that. So again, data is always the answer.
It definitely sounds like, managing leads over time and sort of prioritizing them is really a job in and of itself, where there are so many different variables that you can look at that makes a lead more attainable or quicker to close than another one. And like you said, it could be that an individual person has consumed 5 pieces of content versus someone who signed up for a trial and got multiple people within their organization to also sign up for a trial. Like 2 totally different situations, but both indicators that, hey, these are people you should prioritize over a list of cold emails or something like that. Mm-hmm. So reps are sort of constantly managing different variables at a time and have these things thrown at them that they need to reach out to, they need to prioritize, they need to personalize, and they need to figure out how to effectively reach prospect A versus prospect B. And their pipeline is going to grow because of that. So what tips do you have for an SDR to effectively manage that, to become that sort of quote unquote quota crusher? It's a tough word, quota crusher, that you just talked about.
Yeah. So as far as, as mentioned before, like data is really important, and regardless if you get that from marketing or sales, you want to get that data. But just like the user journey that marketing will use with a trial or anyone who consumes content, we in the SDR world need to have those same tools for the same journey. So if I know that there's a prospect who's probably visited my pricing page, and we've done this, like I've done this in the past and it works phenomenally. Customers on the pricing page multiple times, and I have that information, I'll create a video, like 45-second video, and being like, here's like showing my pricing page, walking them through the pricing and just explaining it to them. It's like, it's a high close rate all the time. So just like those personal journeys, like I've been getting a lot. I actually just got something the other day. I actually got someone sent me some stuff from Iconic, like the motivational boards. So a prospect, I'm in buying cycles right now, and I got online gift card. I get a lot of gifts recently. I got online gift card. I get a personalized video, but I also got like an Iconic motivational board from a prospect, and I'm like, it's great because like I'm in that buying cycle. I was looking at 2 different companies, and not saying that it pushed me over the edge, but I was like, hey, this is really cool because like I can go into the sites and I've been chatting with their support. So they know that I've been chatting with support, and the SDR like reached back out to me. He's like, let's book it with my AE. And I'm like, I don't need to, I'm buying right now. So it's those little things that really matter. But yeah, I feel like being personalized and having those toolkits. So like, I think video, you should be using video. You should be using like, at the right time, if you have the address or even business address, if gift cards, I like something a little more personal. And again, direct mail is also good. So again, have those products for your toolkit so you can send to those prospects, not just email, phone call, and LinkedIn invite. You can send something personal, and they can grab something that they can feel and touch.
Yeah, it really sounds like the core of prioritizing leads over time comes down to access to data and the right access to data, and then consistency. with being able to manage those tools or channels. Once you have a good process for prioritizing leads, actually going out there and getting it done, whether it be video, whether it be social, whether it be calling. And I wanted to kind of go back to something we passed over earlier, which was triggers. One of the big reasons behind having access to data and information is because you're right. If someone checks out content, if someone engages with you on social, if someone downloads information or just reaches out to, chat, I think each one of those kind of has their own weight in terms of value or how you would, quote, score a lead. And you would want to kind of take different directions with them. And some are better than others. Some are bad. Some are obsolete. Some are emerging and new. And so I wanted to just kind of open the field to sales triggers and kind of buyer behaviors. What are some common triggers out there that you've seen, I think, especially in light of, the recent pandemic? What are some good triggers out there that SDRs can use to monitor and spot potential opportunities to prioritize?
Yeah. So, Owler, news, you want to be updated with news. So if it's like, regardless if it's the pandemic, it's like, you want to be updated on business news. Like there are companies raising a lot of money right now. There's, I'm in Canada, I'm in Toronto. There's a unicorn just like the other day just popped up, and they're hiring a lot of people. They're spending a lot of money. So like Owler, you want to be on top of that. Feedly, you're going to get news feeds every day within that. As far as, besides products, you want to look at triggers within the buying cycle. And this is still like broken. This process is very broken still. I see when you look at like your CRM's really like you're inputting data. Your sales engagement product, you're really spitting out a lot of data. And there's nothing that's kind of like bringing everything together. But when we look at some of the basic triggers, opens and clicks and views, like that's okay. Like that's great. But again, the true value where I see the best companies coming together, like that sales and marketing. When the sales leaders have the dashboard, with the marketing leaders have a dashboard, and they sit down weekly and they understand like, here's our clients that we want to sell to. And here, because of the triggers that we're giving you, like imagine it's not just here's your sales engagement product where you can like effectively run a playbook, but like here's a list that we've uploaded for you because of like, these are the high valued triggers that we looked after. And then now the BDR goes after it. So the BDR necessarily doesn't have to, they're not going to have access to all these triggers, but it's really for like the question that you're asking is really the leaders need to kind of be doing this, because the SDRs, let's face it, like I've hired lots of SDRs. They're really junior, especially when you start, like you're junior, you don't know, the business value or how to run a business or what payroll, like you're new and that's okay. And then, after a year or two, you're still, you don't understand how all the mechanisms of the business work. So this really comes down to like those business leaders need to put that extra time in. Don't just look at the forecast. Don't just look at what deals we're closing. Marketing, don't make things pretty. Like that's the worst thing. And I hate that. It's like, my marketing team's awesome. I'm like, really? Like, what are they delivering? It's like, have you seen our website? It's beautiful. It's like, man, like it just gets me. It just gets me all the time. So the leaders need to start coming together to work with those SDRs to give them that data that they need to make their job easier.
Yeah. So it sounds like, a lot of the stuff that you've talked about, it kind of culminates in that moment right there, where it's a combination of the alignment of sales and marketing leaders and really understanding and sort of pulling back the curtain a little bit and diving into why are these leads, why are we prioritizing these leads? And then the delivery of that data and that information to their SDRs in a way that makes sense for them. And that whole process right there is like how to internally in an organization, like if you want to prioritize leads and you want to make sure that reps are targeting the right accounts, the right contacts, it's data and it's alignment. And it kind of stems from that. But outside of that, do you have any sort of last bits of advice or really anything that might fall outside of that little bubble on prioritization that reps should really look out for, and maybe what you're seeing in the industry now that might shift? Because like you said before, things change overnight. So I don't know if there are any trends that you're seeing that might be contrary to what we've talked about so far that we should be on the lookout for.
Well, like when you're prioritizing leads, you want to consider like the industry, the vertical that you're prospecting. So like what's happening, is it an incline or is it a decline? Like you have to ask yourself that question. Like, are they yeah, exactly, are they incline or are they decline right now? And you want to make, a priority for each one. So like right now, anything with remote work is huge. We've all seen every company, and you know what? Software is such a great industry. Everyone's coming up with a COVID relief program. Thank God for software companies, right? Like we're here to the rescue. We have the COVID relief program. There's so many companies doing that. And I don't think that's the right approach, right? Like you're not helping, like, okay, giving someone a discount. That's what you're doing. You're giving a discount. That's not what I want to do. You want to figure out like those businesses that are incline or decline right now. You want to figure out like they're in remote work. Great. Like great advantage. Prioritizing companies over Zoom over like a travel industry, for example. You're not going to be like going in travel industry, like we're going to save you money now. It's like, that's not what we're looking for, right? Maybe if you're like accounting software, maybe now's the time that they may need to like figure out some things. So you want to be proactive about that. But now I think now is a really good time for revenue leaders to work on their SDRs if they, based on like what they have left on their team, to review those pipelines, to review the prospects that they have, figure out the hardest verticals that they've hit and pivot like now. I also think like prospecting at this time is great. We're doing a lot of it here and it's working out amazing. Because I believe the companies, and this is a little side note, but companies who are sitting and saying we're waiting, it's going to be wrong because we're going to get through this, right? We all have to believe like we're going to get through this and times are going to be good and they're going to be better than ever once we get through this because we're all going to die and get back to work. So you want to be prepping for that pipeline. You want to be reviewing, you want to be pivoting, and you now want to be training your reps, which is a good time at this moment. So.
Yeah, awesome. And I've heard that from several sales leaders that prospecting is fine. And it's really only the ones that are complaining that seem to be getting the impact. And what I think it comes down to is process. We've seen a lot of emphasis on software, a lot of emphasis on hiring over the last, decade or more. And now that things are starting to get a little bit volatile, really people with the robust processes in place and SDRs who know how to like follow that and really succeed, those are the ones who are starting to fall out and say like, even in these times where the margin of error is small, I'm able to generate the same results I did from, 3 months ago because I'm doing it right and everyone else isn't. I think that's really valuable advice, Lee. And this has been an awesome conversation. I think we dove into a lot, and not only prioritizing and targeting leads, but kind of what an organization needs to do to make that system happen. So, thank you so much for joining us. Before we wrap up, where can the audience find more about you and Airborne App and the project you're working on?
Yeah, LinkedIn, the easiest. Lee Gladish, just find me on LinkedIn. I'm not active on Twitter. LinkedIn, you can get me on LinkedIn. Airborneapp.com, fill out, forum, chat with us on our site. You can message me directly on LinkedIn. I pretty much get back to everybody and I'll have a conversation with anybody. If there's a startup out there, if there's an SDR, need a little bit of advice, hit me up. There's a few companies out there that, are hiring. You want to kind of keep going out there if you're an SDR and keep your ear and eye open for those jobs because they are going to be out there. And then hone on your skills, right? Like there's so much content online that you can, like, even thinking about getting into this space, you can, do so much research. And like, we all know the books and what to read in the podcasts and, video webinar series, like they're everywhere. So like, do your research. Like that's the thing of the SDR. It's a research job. And, do their research. There's one thing that I'd like to leave off on. And this is something that if you give me, a minute, I'd love to go through it. But it's something that, changed my selling career early on. And I don't see enough sales leaders doing this today. And I don't even think some sales leaders even do it for themselves when they were a sales rep. But when regardless if you're an SDR, this is really meant more for, sales reps, but, SDR, you're going to be climbing the ladder. You're going to be a sales rep and a sales leader eventually. But most salespeople don't understand what their time is worth. They don't understand not only just what their time is worth, but like down to the hour of what their time is worth. So when I was a rep, again, I was taught this and I had no idea until I learned it. I was like, this is fantastic. And it changed everything. But I knew my time was worth like $450 an hour. And you're like, 450, like how is your time worth $450 an hour? Well, when we look at your day, you have so much time within your day, like you're calling, emailing, your phone, you're doing all these activities, but you have like this little sliver at the end of the day where it's like, this is where you close business. This is where you make your money. Okay. And even before you get to that point, if you're a rep and you're closing 10, 50 or $100,000 deals, you want to prioritize your time on that prospect based on the outcome. And let's face it, the commission that you're going to make. So I know that if I'm working, and let's make it simple, let's say you make 10% commission, you close a $10,000 deal, you made $1,000. Well, I know if my time's worth $450 an hour, I want to spend 2 hours with that deal, maybe 3, but I don't want to spend 5 or 6 or 7. And if I'm working on a $100,000 deal, it's, you want to break some, you figure the math, right? I'm making $10,000. I want to spend 10, 20 hours. And chances are you may have to spend more time with those deals. But reps find I chase every single deal without knowing what their time is worth. And, really figuring out this practice for you is really important. So as a rep, try to figure out what your time is worth and prioritize the deals based on not who you think is going to close too, but like what that value is and what that value is to your company, because that's how you become really critical and important to your sales management and your CEO in your company. So understanding that is really critical. So just wanted to share that. I don't see a lot of people doing that today or even understanding what their time is worth, but I think that they should kind of dig into that and kind of understand that a little bit.
That is gold. Well, thank you so much, Lee, for joining us today for Sales Development Represent.
Thank you, Grayson, AJ. Hey guys, thanks a lot. Anytime. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.